Happy Monday, everyone. It is RiverQuest Downstream, the first official episode. I am Steven, your host, also known as Telvari in the RiverQuest Campaign 2. I guess we're just calling it Kareborum, Kareborum 2 Electric Boogaloo.
Yeah, for right now, I think so. Yeah.
Joining us for this session is our DM, Chris, and
uh,
Lomar, Scott. How are you guys doing?
Doing well, man. Doing well. Looking forward to talking about the campaign and chatting a bit about what's been happening in the first 6 sessions with you guys. And yeah, definitely excited.
I'm doing well. Just ready to start talking some behind the scenes stuff. It's my favorite part.
Oh yeah. What's interesting is the amount of conversation that people miss out on the table talk after the sessions that we then this is where the idea for this sort of breakdown came from, was all of these conversations that we would have as we're packing things up and getting things together. And it's like, man, I bet people would actually kind of want to listen to this and hear us yelling at each other.
Not yelling at each other, it's passionately disagreeing with case law and whether whether there would be a jury trial in our world or not.
Yeah, that was an interesting conversation after the last session.
Yeah, it really was. And oh man, well, what it comes down to is that we're all very passionate about role playing and verisimilitude and keeping things sort of real to the world that we're playing in. So, um, so when we have those debates in character, a lot of times they kind of roll out of character and start sort of questioning what the motivations would be, and you know, not just uh not just what our characters believe, but why they believe what they believe, and where you get that like sort of standpoint epistemology from, this Goliath that clearly believes, the law is just. Of course, people would understand self-defense. Like, there's self-defense laws in real life, so of course there's self-defense in Kareborum. Um, but I think that Lomar had different feelings about castle doctrine and where that applies.
Yeah, I think that
Just general common sense as well.
yeah, there was I think from at least from Fuzzy Knuckles, there was a sense of like CSI Lund was going to show up and start, I don't know, analyzing blood samples and fingerprints off of, the
Hammerbeard
bar.
was going to pull his sunglasses off and then.
Yeah. Looks like this is a job for me. Wow.
So
Off we
would it
go.
make a little bit more, let's bring some context into it. Do we want to talk to and kind of recap it a little bit, or the discussion as what we're talking about for those that haven't heard?
Yeah, so I mean, I think that, and unfortunately, I wasn't able to. I did download the Twitch VOD of last Friday's session, but I have not pushed it to YouTube and Odyssey yet. So if you want to tune in to last week, leaving Strixhaven adventures, the only place to watch it right now is Twitch, but tomorrow I'm hoping to have both YouTube and Odyssey updated and get the playlists in order and in line so that people can catch up. But to your point, we probably should sort of break down what happened in barroom brawl that we got ourselves into.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think if we just did like a brief recap, so as to let our passionate listeners know what we're talking about.
Yeah, definitely. So, would you like to take it away, or do you want me to break down what happened?
I can break it. I'll break it down. I don't care. That's up to me.
I was gonna say I actually would love to hear from the players' perspectives what you guys saw happening. Because I can tell you that from behind the screen, it was very interesting to watch it all unfold the way that it did.
All right. So the brief synopsis of what happened was we were at a bar of, it's called the End of the
End of
Road
the Road.
End of the Road Tavern, and it's notoriously a thieves like den guild where shady characters go to, spend time after the end of the day. So we go in on a little side quest to try to figure out some more information regarding some backstory for Milia or Morgan. And as we go in there, we see another student from the academy. So we sit down, me, um, Bayazna, Zlatan, and I think Talvari was there as well, if I'm remembering correctly. And we're talking with her, and Bruce and Fuzzy Knuckles leave. And at that point, after we role play and talk about the student, Bruce comes in seemingly on a mission. And from my seat as Scott, I could very clearly tell that Charlie was dead set on doing something. And so he walks up to this guy, gives him a little nudge, knocks down the coin purse he's carrying, and then tries to give it back to him. Guy catches an attitude, at which point Bruce grabs his hammer and smashes him in the head. Well, because of initiative, he pulled his hammer but got stabbed 3 times before he was able to take an attack. And then from there, that's when we proceeded with the combat. And if anybody wants to add anything more to that, but that's the backstory of how we got to the point of fighting these people in a bar, which led to murders.
I think you left out a key component, and that was why Fuzzy Knuckles and Bruce Kinnan left the End of the Road Tavern.
I was trying to keep it PG, but I mean, if we want to talk about Bruce's stinky shit, we can talk about Bruce's stinky shit.
Oh man, what a great segue into coming back to just start whooping up on the one guy in the bar that's been eyeing them from across the seats. Like, I don't know. For me, it was like watching Charlie's character walk out of the shitter and just like beeline in with only one plan, and that was to just cause havoc.
That's what I saw from my seat. Was Charlie had one plan, and that was to start a fight.
Can I just say, I thought that he was trying to say that he was like in the Thieves Guild by like proving, hey, I can steal from you. I did not know.
Like, hey, let's be friends. Watch how good I am at stealing your stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I thought that there was more of a plan going on. But
So one thing about Charlie is that Charlie makes characters that allow him to be Charlie in a setting where there's no consequences for being Charlie.
that's
So thinking that Charlie would be this masterful plan of like, I want to prove to them that I'm also thievish, that's not Charlie.
yeah.
Charlie is gonna he'd want to start a fight versus try to prove himself as a thief to them.
Yep, so I'm learning. And so Telvari is learning.
Not a lot of subtlety, if you will.
Not a lot of subtlety.
Well,
Which is why the Goliath Barbarian is so perfect
yeah.
for Charlie, because it's just, I'm gonna go and just smash the things.
Right.
It's great.
And the insecurity about being small for a Goliath is
Yeah,
just delicious to listen to.
it is.
And
That is icing on the cake.
and that's something that we were just talking about before we went live is the quality of the role playing at the table has gone up just tenfold over the last 2 sessions, and we've really gotten to know a little bit more about this party that in game has only been friends. Well, they've only been together. I wouldn't, friends is kind of a strong term, but they've been together for approximately 2.5 days, and they have killed for each other clearly, and they're willing to stick their necks out for each other, but they really don't know each other too well. And I think that not only are we starting to know each other as as players we already know each other, but as characters we're starting to get to know each other. But anybody who's tuning in that's watching is getting to see more character development than at day one.
Absolutely true. Like I've seen more revealed about y'all's characters to each other that I knew from like backstory stuff than I've heard in the previous previous 4 sessions. The last 2 sessions have been really good about people just asking questions about the party that they are now traveling with throughout the world. And it's cool to see stuff open up and have you guys asking questions of each other about it.
Yeah, I've as a player who in previous sessions that we've played outside of this, I try my best to role play, but I kind of play it more like a video game, and I'll be the first person to admit that. But I really wanted to kind of get into it a little bit more, get to know the other characters, and so I think as all of us start to get more comfortable with it, us pushing that kind of stuff is going to make everybody else more comfortable with revealing and then asking questions. So I think it's only going to go up as long as people's heads stay in that mentality of I want to learn more about the characters as opposed to just going and doing missions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've all been guilty of that. Let's cross off the checklist of quests that we're trying to achieve. And for my part, since I too have worn the DM hat, I try not to find myself metagaming, and you'll probably see me get a little quiet from time to time because I'm kind of analyzing what's going on in the room. And it helps that my character in this particular campaign is not very charismatic, not very charming, and very oblivious, very you know, uh, sort of flighty and kind of stuck in that perpetual dream state. So typically, if it looks like I don't know what's going on, it's because Telvari does not know what's going on and is very poor at picking up social cues. So it works out because then I can keep my mouth shut and not metagame.
That's funny.
Yeah, honestly, I think that is the hardest part that I have is not for myself is not metagaming because like you see the action unfolding and it's like, well, I want to do this, and then if it's not inside of your character, you're not supposed to do it, but in your head, you know that that's the best move in order to be successful, and it's very tough.
It is. And you and I have talked about this, especially in regards to combat, but also I've brought up the example outside of combat, but behaving in a manner that maybe is tactically sound, but not necessarily mechanically sound. So, not necessarily, hey, how do I get behind this character so that we can pin him so that I get advantage on my attack rolls, but rather, hey, I see that two of my party members are attacking this one guy and nobody's attacking the other guy. So, tactically speaking, all three of us should attack one guy and neutralize one threat at a time. And one of them mechanically beneficial, whereas the other is something that you would actually probably do in a 6-second time span, in a real fight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And I think it's tough it's for all of us. Like we've all grown up playing RPGs and MMORPGs and games that ask you to think tactically in a larger time frame or time window. And so that's how we think about especially combat in D&D. But I like that people are starting to not do that. Like I thought one of my favorite in character moments in the fight at the bar was when Biasna took a sip of water and refused to engage. And she was like, "Ugh, boys being boys, I'm just going to sit here and drink my water because I'm not aware of how serious this situation is, and I'm just not going to put myself in the middle of it." I was like, that's hilarious.
That was fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the thing that I love to see, especially since we're not professionals, we don't get paid to be voice actors or we don't take improv classes as far as I know. Like so seeing us kind of overcome that gaming mentality to get into a truly like role is awesome to see. But then thinking
Mm-hmm.
macro is that if we're just going to get better, like it's going to be really exciting to see what happens in 2, 3, 4 months and see where we're at that point.
I agree. And I mean, to your point, us not being professional, charismatic people, I think it adds this sort of
I do
quaint
my absolute
charm.
best not to be charismatic at any point in my life.
Well, it adds a quaint charm because everything that we do is authentic. You know that every moment that we have at the table is 100% organic. It's, they're not scripted plot points that we're trying to hit before timeout, you know. And we do have our hard time limits because we all have our day jobs and we have our lives to get back to at home. So when those things happen at the table, when Biasna, you know, just pinpoint accuracy sets the bartender on fire and then has a sip of water, or if Fuzzy Knuckles says, I'm terrified of this and hides under a table like a cat. Those moments are 100%, on the fly organic moments that were not planned for more than 6 seconds.
Yeah, I can tell you from last session that there definitely were no plot points that we were trying to hit because I had nothing that happened last session was part of my plan. Like from what I could tell from the previous session, you guys were going to head off to Terran to check out the situation at the Thorn and Petal, and maybe do some adventuring around the village there, or find ways to make money, or maybe just sit in the tavern for 9 days. Like that would have been okay too. And then when you guys were like, let's go check out this tavern here in town, this end of the road, and see if we can find anything. I was like, all right, well, this is not going to go, too many places. Um, so I was like, let me just drop an NPC in here that's, kind of important, but we don't know him yet, so that's all I can say for the moment. Um, and then all of a sudden the fight breaks out where you're actually engaging with him, and I was like, oh my god, I did not see this coming. So it was great.
Well,
Well, and as we've talked about in the past recently, is that if you're ever making a decision or thinking about should I do this because they are or they may not get into combat, always err on the side of getting into combat because
No doubt.
oh
No
yeah.
doubt.
Well, it's like that
angry
saying about
Bruskinen.
Hmm.
it's like that saying about the gun, right? Do not introduce an NPC in the first act unless you want them to be attacked by one of the player characters in the
Yeah.
third act.
So accurate. So accurate.
They will
It's
find a
like
way to piss that person off.
it was like as
Especially
soon as
this
I
group.
introduced the guy sitting across the bar watching you, I was like, I could see the wheels turning in Charlie's head. He was like, I'm gonna go fuck that guy up. I'm like, that was his only mission. Like, I'm gonna go get that guy. I don't know how I'm gonna get him, but I'm gonna get him. And sure enough, he found a way.
And everyone was so suspicious of poor Inyelian.
Yeah, she was from the off. Everyone's like, "Yo, tell us about this poetry you write. Like, where are you really going? Like, what's happening here?" She was just this harmless, naive university student who wandered into the wrong bar in town looking for, something different to do before she left, and got caught up in the middle of a whole bunch of stuff.
And so to kind of piggyback onto the same line of thinking is that because we're so used to a certain style of either video games or movies or anything like that, that we see a character like that in there, especially in a place that she generally wouldn't be, and we're like, that person's got something shady going on. Interrogator.
Hmm.
We're really just
Yep.
like, I just wanted to grab a drink. What the fuck?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely like when I populate out the world, most of the NPCs are just there. They're not part of the story arc. Like, you know, they'll be part of the world, so you guys can ask them as much as you want to. But for most of them, they're going to have answers that are probably more in the lines of like if you're asking them plot point questions, their answers are going to be like, oh, I don't know. Like I'm at the bar, like I'm having a drink. Like you can join me, we can drink and talk about the town, and I can tell you more about that. But like, no, I'm sorry, I don't know where the Fey portal in the Deadwood is.
So then maybe some of that also has to, like, something for us to also consider as well, is instead of like immediately thinking that there's more to it, is just roll insight, right? And then
Mm-hmm.
let the roll determine whether or not we think that there's anything more shady to it and to continue down the line of thinking, right? Like, so if we roll an
Exactly.
insight check, then we generally have an idea, and then we can either go down that line of thinking or know that, okay, this is just a person who has no fucking idea what's going on.
Yeah, exactly.
Although I still think we should have killed the spare.
Kill the
Well,
what?
Killed the spare.
uh,
Oh,
Quote
gotcha,
from Harry
gotcha.
Potter.
Oh, gotcha.
yeah, I mean, we're such cynical players that that sometimes bleeds through. We always think that every single NPC has this ulterior motive, and like you said, 9 times out of 10, they're just people living their lives. and
Mm-hmm.
But you can't blame this particular set of characters for being on it, considering all of the feat and all of the killings and strange happenings that have been going on around them over the last 24 hours.
100% agreed. 100% agreed.
Yeah, like
I didn't
having
mind
some random
any of
person
it.
that I've never met before just blatantly lie to my face. I may not trust everything that everybody tells me.
That's so funny. I've had to like make a note of that in my DM notes. I'm like, if you're gonna be an honest character, you have to be honest and just tell them the truth. You can't be I can't be coy and expect them to get it. So I've made that note. So hopefully not there shouldn't be any characters lying to you anymore that aren't trying to lie to you.
What a novel concept. A
I
trustworthy
know.
character intending to be trustworthy can't
I
lie to
know.
people.
Look at that.
Hey, even someone who is intending to be trustworthy can still be unreliable.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing that says they can't, either misremember things or there's a reason
Yeah,
that
but I would
eyewitness
say
testimony
if
is.
somebody blatantly said, "Have you seen or heard of anything like that?" Somebody's like, "Nope, not a word." And then like 3 minutes later, it was like, "Oh, this is happening all over the place." I was totally lying.
That might have been more DM fault than NPC knowledge. My
Okay.
guess is I probably was not connecting the dots in my own story clearly.
Well, and that's one of the dangerous things. But I say dangerous. It's one of the more exciting things about playing in a homebrew campaign world that, on the one hand, none of us know what to expect because we're not reading from a module, not playing through Strahd, and so the benefit of that is that you can kind of expect the unexpected type thing, but I guess to your point, the haphazardness is sometimes wires are going to get crossed, and we just
Mm-hmm.
have to, as players, be flexible with that and understand that sometimes locations are going to get retconned. Sometimes characters that we think speak with a Scottish accent are actually Australian.
They're gonna come back with a different
Right.
accent.
Well, and truthfully and honestly, the whole being lied to for Lomar was never part of his backstory. Like it was something that was just like, yeah, he wouldn't enjoy being lied to because he comes from his backstory doesn't have lying and deceit and like crime for all intents and purposes back where he's from. So like somebody lying to him wouldn't be appreciated. It would be something that's like, I I'm going to take what you say at your word. And
Yeah.
if that's what you do is you lie, then I don't like you and I'm not going to trust you. So that was something
So
that added to his that became part of his what are they called? Like his tenets of his personality or whatever.
yeah,
Just right there because it was like, oh, I wouldn't want to fucking be lied to.
I like it. So in the Vidalcan culture that you and Sam brewed up for the backstories of your two characters, is like honesty and truth sort of a core cultural value within that Vidalcan society?
So I'll pull back the veil a little bit because we haven't really gotten into it. But as you're the DM and most of us here are pretty good at keeping all this kind of information separate, is that because our society pretty much functions on its own, it doesn't get a lot of like it, we live on our own, right? So
Mhm.
everything that we harvest, we use. Everything that we hunt, we use. Everything is used for the betterment of our society. So stealing from somebody doesn't make any sense because you could just be like, "Hey, can I have that? I need that," right?
Hmm.
There's no real like crime, and if there is any kind of like disagreement or crime or anything like that, it's settled through what Sam and I called like feats of strength, but like but things that benefit the whole, right? So like if
Right.
there's if me and if there's two hunter gatherers, right, that are disagreeing about something, then their feat of strength is gonna be like who can provide the most amount of wood in 24 hours that's going to allow the society to, you know, make tools, have the things that they need, and then whoever, however it's settled that way is the winner of that is how it's settled. So it's a very like more like we're here to help each other culture. There's no need to lie because what I have, you can have. What I
Right.
need, I can get from you. Um, and if not,
Yeah,
I'll
it's like
just
a
challenge
communal
you.
like society.
Hmm.
Cool.
And so having somebody like lie directly to him. Well, and you know, like you said, it was probably more of a DM mistake, but I mean, it came out as a in character, so it was like, well, that's a problem for Lomar now because as somebody who has to rely on the other people around him and trust that they're doing their part and trust that what they're saying is accurate. If they come back with no food for the day, trust that they didn't just fuck off and sleep, that they
Hmm.
did what they were supposed to. So to have somebody blatantly lie to them is kind of an attack on his understanding of the world.
Yeah, that makes total sense. That's cool to know too, because now I can weave that in a little bit more. Because I can definitely promise that there will be more characters that lie to you along the way.
I had a feeling.
Well, and I mean, even within the party, you have party members that are keeping secrets from the rest of the party. Um, some for, I would argue, probably nefarious reasons, and others for their own reasons. Maybe it's part of their own backstory, but I think Lomar has every right in the world to be suspicious of Biasna and Telvari for keeping aspects of themselves secret from the rest of the group. And I think
So
that
this is where the sorry to interrupt.
no, please.
Um, this is where it's like almost verbiage differentiation. So it's like Vidalcan don't share. They're not overt sharers. Now, because that doesn't really work in a group like storytelling scenario such as D&D, like you have to kind of break that whole stereotype and that whole character arc or whatever you want to call it, their little quirk that they don't overly share, but they wouldn't look at somebody not sharing as deceit. They would just look at it as everybody's got their own thing going on, right? Like I'm not gonna openly. Well, I will as Lomar and Sam will as Latan because, again, we're collectively storytelling. But like, if you're playing it true to a Vidalcan, they're not going to open up about who they are, where they come from. Like, it's very much going to be put back on like, oh yeah, I'm from around. So what about you? Tell me about you. Like, it's going to
Hmm.
be redirected right back at the person as opposed to giving that information. Um, so like, I Lomar isn't going to necessarily be apprehensive or concerned about Biasn or anybody else because everybody's got their story, right? Everybody's got their reason for doing things, and not everybody's going to be upfront about it. But when somebody's like, "Hey, is it hot out?" and they're like, "No," and you go outside and it's hot, like that's a lie, like a blatant lie. Lying
Direct
through omission
deception.
is not a lie in Lomar's world.
Okay, that's I appreciate that distinction. That
Hmm.
you know, and like you said, Vidalkins, if they don't share, then lying by omission is kind of what they do because they omit everything.
Yeah, which like, and I keep repeating it, but like collective storytelling, you can't not do it, or else there's no role play. There's no I mean, there kind of is because then you've got to play that person that is able to take a question, answer it without answering it, and bounce it back at somebody. But that's quickly annoying, if for to be completely honest, if somebody's always doing that to you.
Right, you end up having to rely on everyone else prying things out of you. But
Mm-hmm.
I think that that's the advantage of having two Vidalcan in the party is that because you guys share that culture, guys can play off of one another very well. I think in session one did that pretty well, but I think that as we've gone along and you've sort of formed bonds with different people in the party, um, you and Zlatan have interacted less and less as you've kind of gotten closer with other people. I mean, Zlatan and Telvari have been um, kind of buddy buddy and having conversations off to the side. Uh, I try not to have those conversations because I want everything to end up on stream and everything, um, but it's nice to know that individual characters can kind of break off and have their own side misadventures, the Merry and Pippins of the group, if you will.
Yeah.
Well, I definitely like that our Vidalcan are starting to see the group. Like the way that I've always kind of viewed the two of our Vidalcan characters is that being from a communal society, people tend to place value on the individual group. And as our groups individuals have started to help those around them, I feel like that has allowed like sort of the story fabric to connect the Vidalcan to the others because they now see them as individuals who are helping the group, which in their culture would mean they are, you know, good, that they are helpful, that they are strong people. And so they're starting to not see
Hey,
them
Chris,
obviously as, hey,
TV timeout. I don't know if
oh, sure.
Bayless is still in here.
He is. He's down in the audience right now. I think he's just listening to see how it sounds down there.
Oh,
Or he
okay. I
might have
didn't know
had
if he was.
to drop off mic for a second, so he just popped down there.
I didn't know if he could. If you. Yeah. So sorry. Continue. I'm listening.
No worries, man. That was it. Just that I think that like if you were talking about how like you guys are opening up more to them than maybe Vidalcan's like textbook Vidalcan wise would do. I think it's because at this point in the story you're starting to see the group as individuals who are helping one another.
Yeah, and one of the things that Sam and I kind of put together is like because the whole group aspect of it, we can't do that. So we worked it into our background that it would be kind of like since we've been at the academy at Strixhaven for the past 5 years or 4 years, however long the schooling is, I can't remember, and that we've gotten a little bit more accustomed with societal norms and like sharing and
Mm-hmm.
talking about yourself and stuff like that. So we two Vidalcans are more comfortable with it than many other Vidalcans would be if you were to encounter them
Right.
out in the real world.
That's good to know because if I need to play a Vidalcan NPC, then I know not to be sharing. I'm definitely gonna tap you guys for like character notes when I bring in Vidalcan NPCs for you guys to interact with.
That's exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's definitely a difference between the learned Vidalcan that's been forced to interact with people outside of their own communities and the ones that have been kind of sheltered. Oh, but
Yeah,
yeah,
and it's
sorry
just
about that. I had to take a call real quick, so.
yeah, I
No
just saw you
worries.
drop down and I was like, should we wait?
No, you guys are good.
But yeah, no, it's definitely an interesting perspective to play. If I had the chance to do like a character all over again and I had to do Vidalcan, I may try to actually play it like a Vidalcan would to see if I can be that guy that can swizzle the conversation where it's never about me. It's always about somebody else. Because I think that
Well,
would be interesting to do, but
we can make that happen.
I,
Maybe Lomar has an accident, and then
we
Ramol is born.
Well, we do have a very, very squishy party.
Yep.
So far we've managed to get out of every scrap we've been in, pretty handily, but it has been touch and go, especially for a couple of our party members. Definitely a group of paper tigers.
Big time.
I'll tell you, Lomar almost bit it, and
Just swarm of rats.
watching myself miss on attacks definitely brings it home that like we're not untouchable.
Oh yeah. I mean, just looking at on the Twitch stream, looking at the D&D Beyond overlay, let's see, Lomar, you have 12 hit points according to this overlay. Zlatan has 13. Bruce has 25, so he's doing okay. But Biazin has 14 and Fuzzy has 13, but he hasn't updated yet, so he's a little bit higher. But still, like that's not a lot of hit points, especially since like you and I were talking about earlier, Scott. Like, since we have so many players in the party, the way that I want to make combat harder without making it bogged down and controlling 25 different minions is having pretty powerful foes that you have to go up against. So the odds of being one shot by something is ever present. Like it would only have taken a crit from the guy that you fought in the bar, and for him to crit on one of his attacks to probably insta kill everybody but Charlie, if I had to guess.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the 3 attacks would, even on average damage, Lomar's going down.
Exactly. And so
we don't have a
so
single
it's going to be
healer.
interesting to see. Sorry, what did you say, Steven?
Oh, we don't have a single healer among us.
Sam. So Sam can heal.
Do not. I think Sam can off heal, but
he's got some healing spells, but he's not. That's not what his.
Yeah. But he is not a healer.
No.
That's not what his speciality is.
No.
Let's see.
That's funny. I know that should some of these casting characters go down, I think you were talking about having a healing character. I think Sam said he had one. I think it's like the pendulum is going to swing the other direction. We're going to come back and it's going to be like 5 healers and 2 damage dealers.
Yeah, I want to play Lomar all the way through. I want him to go all the way to the end because I think fascinatingly he's got a rich backstory, and also there are things that Sam and I put together as part of our backstory and the reason our why, if you will, and that's gonna change. I already see it and I already have it. So it's weird because it's like I read the Stephen King like on writing book, and it's like sometimes the story doesn't end up where you want it to. I'm like, how the fuck does that make sense? Like, you're writing it, you know where it wants to go. Yeah. But it's definitely palpable, and you can definitely see, like, and especially when I'm playing the character, like he's not gonna be doing the things that we originally set out to do. So I can already see it just based on the 2 days that we've been out, you know.
Since we're all pretty good about separating player and character knowledge, do you mind like sharing some of what you are talking about, like some of the background stuff that has changed?
I'm absolutely, I'm up for it. I don't want to steamroll Telvari or Steven's questions as the host or anything like that.
Not at all. I'm having a great time just hearing you out, and even if you didn't want to give too much away, you can at least say what direction you thought Lomar was going in that he is now no longer going in. If you if you know what I mean.
He hasn't gotten to that point where he's not doing that, where like it. So I have no problem sharing, and as long as people can keep table knowledge and like not bring that into it or start talking about like that kind of stuff, that I have no problem sharing backstories. I think that it gives everybody kind of something to lean towards, especially when it comes to role playing, like having that little bit of like player knowledge to say, okay, so he's an adventurer that's out, like I'm not going to use his backstory, but it's like I know as a player I can start talking to him about adventuring, and that's going to enrich in the story, versus me like, so tell me why you're not going back. But so we were, without telling the whole backstory, because I do want that to come out and
More organically,
like either organically through like conversation with another character, and or I still want to do those vignettes. I just haven't taken the time to sit down and write like out like a 3-minute scene. But he went to Strixhaven, and now that he's graduated, Zlatan and Lomar's plan was to go out, see the world, learn what we can to bring back to our clan, Briar Piernan, Briar Peren, Briar Peren, and basically take that knowledge that we learned at the academy, take the knowledge that we've learned from various cities and this and that, and bring it back so we can, you know, improve our clan. Because, like I said, everything is for the betterment of our world, our clan, our people. Um, but as Lomar is seeing and having, he's always up for adventure. Um, like so, the idea of going back is starting to settle in the back of my head as the person playing Lomar is like, I don't think he's gonna want to go back. I think he gets to, especially if we actually make it to the Feywild. I can't see him getting out of there and being like, well, now I want to go back and start hunting and gathering and not exploring and adventuring the rest of my life away. So
Once you got a
I
little
think that,
taste of it,
yeah.
like your
So I don't,
Rumspringa.
yeah, exactly. I
The Vidalcan Rumspringa.
so it may have been picked up on in the first episode, but he was very heavily like, let's all drink. We just graduated party. Like that's a very accurate description as calling it his Rumspringa because he's essentially tearing it up before he comes back home to settle. Um, but going out and meeting these people now, fuck the Furbold, right? That's what Lomar's mentality is at this point. Dude lied to his face. But like meeting those types of people who can teach him more about how to manipulate time and how he may not even stay focused on chronomancy. That's just what he studied at school. Like there are so many other the magical things in the world that interest him. So the idea of going and learning those things and being like, okay, well, back to the clan. It's just I can already see it's likely not gonna happen that way. So it's gonna create this. I don't know if it's gonna be a tension, but it's definitely gonna create this at least conversation between Lomar and Zlatan, who at least when Sam and I were creating this backstory, that's what we were gonna do was go back now. Whether that's where Zlatan's head's at this point, I don't know.
Yeah, that's it's gonna lead to that hard conversation, kind of like a Sam and Frodo moment of,
Mm-hmm.
no, I'm not going back to the Shire.
Yeah, and I that's kind of where I drew a lot of the inspiration for it was we were rewatching Lord of the Rings, and it's such a interesting thought process of like if you've seen what the world has to offer, do you really want to go back to just being mediocre? You just want to go back to being yeah, wife, kids, you know, just living your life until the day you die. Like I can't I can't see it being a realistic thing for Lomar.
No, that's a very perceptive of you to notice that sort of character growth and that arc kind of coming around the corner, because it's not something that I think even the character himself would realize until much later on. Um, but yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. If you're in the pages of a book and you start noticing that this character it starts getting exposed to sort of these things and kind of get that Joseph Campbell hero's journey going, and once they cross that threshold into the unknown and into obviously in the hero's journey, it's like journey into hell type thing. Once you've been to hell and back, you're not the same. Either the character's not the same when they return home, or they just don't return home at all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like the old saying, you can never step in the same river twice. You are never the same person, and it's never the same river.
So that's a little bit of the backstory with Lomar, and I tried not to reveal too much about his backstory because I want that to kind of come out in organic ways or through vignettes and stuff like that. And also, with Zlatan being part of that backstory, I feel like, I want those to be the two of them sharing those things.
It'll be interesting to see how we can pull that story from you guys. I'm certainly not going to like try to force it. Like I want it to happen organically. But I'm interested to see how it comes out. And I hope that, Lomar makes it to the end of the campaign. Because I would love that moment in the story for your character and just for you as a player now that you've kind of seen how that's playing out. Like I would love that moment where, like, assuming Sam doesn't have the same arc, he goes to step onto the ship back to Tekos and says, like, come on, Lomar. And you just kind of go, I can't go back. That would be, oh man, that would be poetic almost. It'd be great. So we'll see. We'll see if it plays out.
You make it that
however
far.
long it takes us to get there.
And if he dies before that happens, then he dies before that happens, and I've got some ideas cooking about the next one.
Yeah. I think the nice thing is that, like, now that we've had our characters, in the real world for 6 sessions, or really 8 weeks since we've missed a couple sessions for real life stuff, like, people are attaching to them, and not only like players to their own characters, but characters within the group are attaching to one another in different ways. And so I think that, whenever the first player death happens, if it happens, when it happens, when multiple player deaths happen, if and when they happen, like, I think it's gonna a emotional moment at the table where people are like, oh shit, like, uh, Fuzzy Knuckles died. Like, oh my god, like Fuzzy Knuckles. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's gonna be more than just if somebody had died like in the first few weeks of us playing, and then we're like, oh, okay, well, just roll a new character. Like, in game, those characters would have only known each other for like 6 hours. So you would have been sad that somebody you met had died in this fight that you were in, but in reality, like, you're gonna be sad and then move on because you don't know them.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, at this point, when Bruce was stabbed like 5 times, I had no attachment to Bruce. Like, Lomar would be like, man, that sucks. I just witnessed somebody get killed.
Mm-hmm.
That's fucking
Dockhand.
crazy. But he kind of started it. So, I mean,
he kind of had it coming.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm interested to see how the table reacts when and if there is the first player death. Which I can honestly say I am neither trying to avidly make happen, nor am I trying to, like, avoid it. Like, there's no plot armor for anybody. Like, if the dice go against you, then they go against you. I don't fudge, too much. But if it is, for just to be transparent, since we have players listening, like, I'm not trying to keep everyone alive, nor am I a DM that's trying to kill everybody. I wanna see story arcs play out.
oh, I mean, it's the fate of the dice as far as I'm concerned. Like, if I die, I don't think anybody's actively trying to kill me. I think it's just either shit rolls or great rolls for whoever killed me.
Rolling them bones, man.
And that's what I love about it. That's
Yep,
honestly
that's what's fun, man.
Why we
I
do
agree.
what we do.
Yeah, man. I know that Scott, you and I have talked about this, and I think Steven, you were part of this conversation back when we were playing campaign 1. Like, I think one of the reasons why, just to kind of piggyback on your point, Scott, that D&D, especially real play D&D, has become so popular with people, is that we're all kind of fed up with this serial storytelling where it's just become predictable, where main characters have plot armor to the point that nothing feels dangerous because you're like, well, they're not going to kill all the characters off. Like, that's not going to happen. And look no further than the first few seasons of Game of Thrones, where none of the characters had plot armor and everyone was dying, and everyone fell in love with that show because they were like, finally, a show that actually makes me, not know what's going on. I can't just predict what's going to happen in the next hour of this. I'm going to tune in and watch and be mesmerized by whatever happens. I think that's why D&D has become so popular again, because there is no prescribed ending or prescribed action. It's whatever happens with the dice.
Honestly, I'm glad you mentioned Game of Thrones because that's where my head went when you just mentioned that. Is that it's it really is just when I first watched when I read the book first, the first book, and so when do I spoil this for people at this point?
I think I, I think that the arc of Game of Thrones going from unknown, super nerdy high fantasy series to touchstone cultural phenomenon, and then back to nobody caring about it has
Yeah,
run its
I
course.
mean,
So I
if
think you're
people
okay to
haven't
spoil.
if people haven't read the books, then they've watched the show, and if they haven't watched the show, they've watched a YouTube video complaining about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. When Ned Stark died, that was mind-boggling to me as a reader because
Yeah.
you very rarely see it unless like they're non-main characters, but he was
Especially
a
in such a
main character.
non-ceremonious way.
Yeah,
Hmm.
it was just like, yep, he's dead.
Yeah.
It's just like,
Like I
holy.
remember watching that I guess it was the season 1 finale, or maybe like the penultimate episode, or maybe not. Maybe it was like just buried in the middle of the season. I don't remember now. But they bring Ned up to the executioner's block, and everyone's like, watching, and everything's going on, and then Joffrey's like, yeah, we'll let him live, blah blah blah. I was like, God, man, I saw this coming. Like, of course they're gonna let him live. This is just all for show. And then he's like, nah, never mind, chop his head off. And they did it, and I was just like, what? Because I was like all about Ned Stark. I was like, this dude's gonna be a cool character. I love
Uh-huh.
his all of his his worldview, his philosophy, like everything is checking all the boxes for a character that I like. And then he chops his head off in like episode 4, and I was like, what is this show? Like, what is going on that they kill off what looked to be one of the main characters of the show in episode 4? Like, what's going on here? So yeah, I'm all about it. It was a perfect twist. It's like, I forget where I read it, but somebody had mentioned one of the things that George Martin does so well with his writing and his character development is he knows exactly when to kill them to get the biggest payoff.
And I think that translates incredibly well to D&D in that like e- everybody can die. Like there's no such thing as an invulnerable character. And
Hmm.
so when you've got a beloved Lomar getting murked, like it's like he's not gonna die. The DM's gonna save him, and then nope, off with his head. That's awesome.
Yeah,
It's awesome as a
agreed.
character. It's awesome as a player. Like it makes it feel realistic.
Yeah, I think it's definitely, I definitely agree, 100%.
We had a near imprisonment situation last episode. And like you said, the dice determined that we were lucky that night that this this poor guard who stumbled upon, or the member of the town watch who stumbled upon two of our party members coming out covered in blood, and
The old, it's just jam.
It's just jam.
it's just jam.
That's so great. It was so great. I was like, okay, well, let's see how these dice roll.
I mean,
It's
that could have
perfect.
gone a very different way, and on the one hand, there's that sense of relief as a player, but then I have to admit, the next day I was like, I wish that they'd gotten arrested because
I'm not gonna lie, I was really hoping for that twist.
I mean, it was set up for that. If the town's guard had just rolled a little better, and I promise I didn't botch the rolls to let you guys get away. Like, he botched one, and then the other one was a 2 or a 4. I don't remember off the top of my head now, but he was uh he was just not very perceptive. Blame it on lack of sleep from the last couple nights of craziness.
That's another interesting point to like bring up is how like well things kind of fall into place. And I know that that's like the whole point of dice rolling is that you fit what happens narratively into it, but like it's not like it was daytime. It's not like it was on the heel of like no kind of stress or anything like that. Like of course he would of course his roles would be of course he wouldn't see that shit. Of course he'd believe it because he's got so many other things going on in his brain. But
Yeah,
like it just fits so perfectly. And that if it had happened during the day, it'd be like, well, that's kind of anticlimactic because he would have absolutely known. But unfortunately we got the dice rolls, but this one is like it fits. And I
Mm-hmm.
love
I
when
agree.
that kind of stuff happens.
Agreed. Plus, I just didn't want to leave off another episode with us being like, all right, let's leave town. Like, I feel like the last 2 or 3 episodes have been like, all right, let's leave, like, wherever that you are. And then we're heading here now. And so I was like, I'm going to do something at the end here just to change it up.
We caused a
So
ruckus and then we left.
Yeah.
yeah,
And then you left.
one of the things that I've learned from the other shows that I listen to is that you always got to leave them on a cliffy.
No doubt.
So it would have been so amazing for you to have been like, and we'll see you next time.
I think that's what we'll incorporate that next time because yeah, I'm gonna definitely try to keep the cliffhangers at the end of our episodes, especially ones like that where there's been big action that has concluded. Kind of have a hook to the next week.
Right? Like the guard, whether he buys the it's strawberry jam or not,
You have to wait and find out.
you got to find out.
Yeah, I kind of let that resolve on its own though, since I knew we weren't going to be meeting as a group this Friday.
Yeah, that 2 week break kind of hurts that Cliffy.
So, well, on that note, since I mean, we talked about like scheduling this week's obviously going to be kind of difficult for the group with life and work schedules and stuff. Probably still need to get that on the books. Whether we are taking this week off or whether coming back to it, that's something that we're going to have to discuss here on Discord. So it's a good opportunity to shout out to anyone listening. Do join the official RiverQuest Games Discord. Link is in the chat and in the description of the video here. And stay up to date with us. Of course, follow on Twitch. Normally on Fridays would be our stream days, but this week's obviously going to be something different.
Yeah, we gotta find a filler for either doing maybe like a one shot of sorts or something, but I don't know.
Yeah.
We're going into Wednesday or what's today? Monday or Tuesday? Monday.
It's
Today's
Monday.
Today's
Yeah.
Monday.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
well, and Spud is out of town all week and probably not able to play at night because I'm guessing he's working late.
Mm-hmm.
And then he and I leave on Friday for a family camping trip. And then we'll be back Sunday the following week. But I mean, I'm able to.
it's Sunday the following. You're going for a full week?
Sorry, just the weekend. Sorry, I misspoke. We're just
Okay,
going
okay.
Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I'll be back Sunday like afternoon. Man, it'd be great to go for a week minus missing a second week of D&D. But yeah, I can probably might be able to do something later this week. I'm probably out just because with going camping over the weekend, I've got to balance out the home life. So I'll probably stay here and do dinners and things. And so I might be out, but that doesn't mean that our intrepid players can't throw together a one shot.
Yeah, I think we can probably put something together for this Friday. Whether it's you or me, Scott, I think that we can make something happen.
Yeah, I'd be down. Just gotta make moves.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
I think that like Charlie and Caroline would be down. They're in town. So really it would just be me and Andrew and Morgan that are missing.
mm-hmm. Yeah, because
Yeah.
Sam will be around as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's might be a tough ask to get people to like roll characters. Oh,
Well,
we
maybe
can do it.
we can
We can
have
do it.
some pre-gen characters that we use.
Yeah,
True.
man. It'd be good role play practice too, just to pick up a character that you've not thought anything about and just have to just go for it.
Yeah, we're not gonna have
That'd
a
be
party
fun.
full of Wolverines with tragic backstories and all that nonsense.
That was so a little bit more behind the curtain on Sam and my creations that we were both very much like we want to break the trope of having the tragic backstory where somebody was hurt or like sad and like this that or the other, and we're like, what about this? And it's like, okay, well, what if we tweaked that so it didn't have the negativity towards it and it was something positive? And so the whole thing that we created was literally as a means to break that, like you said, Wolverine in the group where it's just like, because it's so overplayed. It's played. Everybody has a tragic backstory.
Yeah.
But not everybody has a tragic backstory.
The ironic part of that is that I think only one character in our party has a backstory that would even be considered troubling. I think everyone else is pretty much like you guys, like graduating college and setting off in the world. Or I've
blessed
been
to be
like
stressed.
Andrew's character. Yeah, just like I've been living on a ship for my whole life, enjoying every moment of it. And now I'm here in town because my ship set sail somewhere or got sunk or got caught on fire or who knows.
It definitely seems like we all mind melded because we've got me and Caroline playing almost the exact same character, just with different backstories and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Like our spells are very similar. Our roles are even fucking the exact same.
I saw that on the VOD from last week's session, last Friday.
Like she rolled a 1, I rolled a 1, then she rolled like a 7, I rolled. It was like, why are we rolling the exact same? And then like none of us wanted to have the tragic backstory, and we all played casters. Like we definitely all mind melded on that one.
Yeah, definitely. I think the session 0 allowed everyone to like zone in on one idea, and it's awesome to see it playing out right now. It's fun.
All right, well, guys, I hate to be that guy, but I actually have to take off and fix dinner for the wife. So we've been going a little over an hour. I was gonna say, are you guys cool with calling tonight's downstream now, or would you guys like to keep carrying it on without me?
No,
We
I
can
think an
dock.
hour is perfect.
We can dock this boat.
Hmm.
Sounds
I think an
good.
hour is like the perfect time for these types of things, unless we have like, like a major thing to talk about, like player
Yeah,
deaths or TPKs or big bad encounters and things like that. Like an hour is a nice sweet spot to talk a lot, but not talk for too long.
yeah. Well, guys,
Agreed.
I appreciate you tuning in this evening and hanging out with us, and hopefully we can continue this tradition of the Monday follow-ups to our Friday shenanigans. And to all those listening, please do subscribe to the RiverQuest Games YouTube channel, follow us on Twitch, and join our Discord so that you can be part of the conversation as well. Chris, Scott, thank you so much.
Thanks for
Thank
hosting,
you.
bud.
Hey, it's my pleasure. Well, you guys have a good rest of your week and a good rest of your evening. I will catch you all on the next one.
All right,
Later,
buddy.
Steven.